What's up you guys, it's me Luke and welcome back to another video, or if you're new here, welcome to my channel. If you're new here, I post commentary and critique videos. Basically, I just love sharing my opinion, so if any of that interests you, make sure that you go ahead and subscribe and turn on the post notifications bell so that you never miss another upload. Alrighty guys, so today's video is one that I've been wanting to make for a few weeks, but I've been a little bit apprehensive about because it's about Shane Dawson, who is one of the biggest content creators on the platform and who stands attack anyone who even has the slightest criticism of him. However, I, on my channel, critique people. That's what I do. So today we're going to be critiquing Shane Dawson and his content as a whole because I have a lot to say and you guys have a lot to say as well. I actually went ahead and asked you in my community tab, as I usually do for my videos, and you guys really just knocked it out of the park. I had over 400 comments. Obviously I was not able to get to all of them, but I read through a significant amount and they really helped me shape this video, so thank you to all of you for your input. There's a lot that we need to discuss today about Shane Dawson and his content and his docu-series, so without further ado, let's just hop right into it. Now, if you have been keeping up with my channel for a little bit, you will know that I did a commentary series to Shane Dawson's most recent docu-series with Jeffree Star. Now, the reason I did this is because it had been a while since Shane Dawson had come out with videos and I'd kind of forgotten what his docu-series tend to be like, especially the Jake Paul one. Now, with the Jake Paul series, I made 2 videos on that series. I didn't do one on every single episode. It was a bit more manageable. However, with that series, taking it back to those videos and rewatching those made me realize how much I didn't like that docu-series and how much I'm not actually a fan of Shane Dawson's documentaries. I think with Shane Dawson, because I've been watching him for so long, I have kind of this nostalgia around him, and when you don't watch his videos in a while because he only posts a few times a year now, it's easy to forget the things that you don't like about his videos because you're more so clouded by the nostalgia of it all. So I saw that Shane Dawson was coming out with a new series and the trailer looked really good, even though it was completely misleading and like 95% of what was in the trailer was not in the series. But anyway, we'll get to that just now. So I saw the trailer, Shane Dawson, new series on Jeffree Star. I really liked the first one. I just did a series reacting to Tana Turns 21. Y'all loved it. So I was like, you know what? Why not go ahead and do a commentary series on every single episode? Now, the first couple episodes of the series I did enjoy, but towards the end, as you guys would have seen in my commentary videos, it was kind of an epic decline. I stopped enjoying the series. It felt like a chore. I would have to force myself to watch the video and force myself to film my video on it. Honestly, I was just so looking forward for it to be over. I'm actually really glad that they cut the series short because I was just so over it and so done by the end of it. But I just wanted to finish making that series for you guys because I don't like not finishing things up, and a lot of you preferred watching my video. However, doing that commentary series and putting myself through that reminded me of all of the things that I don't like about Shane's documentaries and all of the things that I have issues with, and it just kind of made me think of new things. So I really wanted to go ahead and talk about this because I feel as though Shane Dawson as a content creator is very overrated, and I feel like a lot of people overlook a lot of things about his content and basically praise him for really not doing much, and I feel like a lot of people glaze over a lot of the issues with these documentaries, and I don't think I'm the only one who is like this because I feel as though a lot of people I've been seeing on Twitter or in my YouTube comment sections feel the same way as me. It's just that the stands are a lot louder and that these people who have issues are too scared to really speak on it because of those stands. So that's kind of what I want to get across today, is just do a critique of Shane Dawson and his content as a whole, because I feel like there are a lot of problematic things with his content. But anyways, I feel like that was probably one of the longest intros ever and y'all have probably clicked off at this point. But for those of you who haven't, let's go ahead and hop right into it. I'll be touching on various documentaries that Shane Dawson has done, particularly the Jeffree Star ones, the Jake Paul ones, and the Tana Mongeau ones, and a bit of the conspiracy theories. Now, first off, I would like to go ahead and speak about the structure of Shane Dawson's docu-series, or the lack thereof. So a huge issue I have with Shane Dawson's series is the lack of direction and structure and story arcs throughout his documentaries. Now, the thing is, everything would be fine if Shane Dawson didn't claim that his videos were docu-series or documentaries. If he just treated them as regular videos or vlogs, I wouldn't have a lot of the criticisms that I have. However, Shane Dawson claiming to be a documentarian and putting the tags in his description as journalist and docu-series and documentary, he's claiming that that's what his videos are, and a lot of other people say that's what they are. Even some people say he should have documentary series on Netflix. A lot of people hold him to this high esteem, yet when you look at his videos, they're nothing of the sort. So most documentaries have kind of a goal or a clear message in sight, and Shane Dawson, I feel as though when he creates his series and thinks of them, he has kind of a general idea of what he wants to speak about and maybe thinks about it. But the problem with Shane Dawson's series is they lack direction and they lack focus. His series are extremely long, hours and hours of videos, videos, multiple part series, 8-part series, and most of it is just fluff that just didn't need to be there. I feel like all of his docuseries you could cut down by a quarter. That could be the actual information that is essential and interesting to the docuseries instead of all this extra shit that he just kind of adds in there. I've seen a lot of people call his videos vlogumentaries or just say that they're glorified vlogs, and I definitely agree to a certain extent that that's the case, because there are so many things that he inserts in his series that are just not relevant to the topic at all. And now I feel like as though some people may argue that it's his videos, he can do whatever he wants, it's his life, blah blah blah. But if he's going to claim to be a documentarian and make these documentaries about a certain topic, he should focus on that certain topic instead of getting sidetracked with all these other things that are more often than not even relevant. So an example of this is in Shane Dawson's most recent documentary, which I believe is his worst one yet, his infomercial for his conspiracy palette with Jeffree Star. I did my final review of this series, so I won't get into it too much, but I'll link that down below. That series started off being one thing and ended off being another. He started off wanting to go into the beauty industry and discover all of its secrets, and then the series kind of flipped on its head halfway through and became all about the business side of things and making a palette and basically showing you the process of making the palette. Now that would be an interesting topic, however, that's not what you started off with. The trailer did not match what the series ended up being. The series started in one place and then ended in another. The direction completely did a 180, and beyond that there were so many plot holes that started that were never later explored or concluded, like when Shane Dawson in the beginning of the series was doing a lot of stuff about his weight and working out and overcoming his body issues, and that was seen to be a big thing, and then it was just kind of left to the dust. Or other things that were just kind of put in there, like when there was that series with Morgan, we thought it was going to be kind of a story arc throughout the documentary. Meanwhile, it was just kind of like a 20-minute segment in one episode that kind of didn't make sense with the rest of the episode. It was kind of just put in there, and you'll see that a lot with Shane Dawson's docuseries is there's really no structure to them. A lot of the time you watch them and he'll intercut between scenes, or he'll do flashbacks, or he'll do time changes, and it doesn't really make any sense in the context of the video. I don't have an issue with those techniques, but the way that he uses them makes little to no sense. Beyond that, I think a lot of the issues that people have with Shane Dawson's videos is the lack of journalistic integrity. So what I mean by this is, in a lot of Shane Dawson's documentaries, he is interviewing these problematic influences, and there's somewhat almost a redemption story to try and change the public's perception of these people, which is another issue in of itself. The fact that he constantly is creating these series about rich white influencers who are super problematic to try and change public's perception of them, and more often than not it works. Do we not remember when he did the series on Jake Paul and all of a sudden people were somewhat feeling sorry for him and liking him, even though he really didn't have many redeeming qualities or apologize or acknowledge or accept or admit to some of the horrible things that he had done. So I don't really see what there was to be forgiven. However, Shane Dawson manipulates his audience into believing his point of view and to going with his narrative, and he's extremely biased in his series as well. Now when it comes to journalism, all journalists are biased to a certain extent. It's just a humanistic thing that you're going to lean one way or the other. However, you need to have a certain degree of neutrality and a certain degree of looking at things from both point of views. Although I feel as though Shane is extremely biased, and because of that he can't really interview the influencers in a way that would get the real answers or answer the questions that the audience has. So for example, with the TanaCon series, Shane Dawson is obviously friends with Tana and cares for her, and he kind of lets that get in the way of the interview. Now he asked Tana Mongeau these questions, but he doesn't really ask her the hard-hitting questions. He doesn't really push back at her. He doesn't really do what a journalist is supposed to do. He'll ask a question, and if Tana denies it, he'll be kind of like, okay, whatever, and moving on to the next one. And he does the same thing in the Jake Paul series, and every single time he does these series, he's like, I'm not going to hold back. I'm going to ask the hard-hitting questions, and then he never delivers. He'll ask Jake Paul these really important questions about manipulating his young audience and selling merch, and then Jake Paul will just be like, no, I don't do that. And then Shane Dawson's like, are you sure? And Jake Paul's like, no. And Shane Dawson's like, okay, moving on to the next question. And then we don't really get an interesting interview with any answers to the questions that we have. We just kind of get a conversation between a sympathetic Shane and a problematic influencer trying to basically change the perception of the public of them. And that's not really what anybody's signed up for. And it doesn't make for an interesting documentary. Maybe Shane Dawson could be good at interviews, but I think the problem is he often is interviewing people that he's friends with, or he lets his emotions get the better of him. I just don't think that he's cut out to be a journalist or documentarian and ask the hard-hitting questions. I feel like you have to be the type of person who's able to do that, and I just don't think Shane is that person, which is why there are all these issues, because he's creating these videos and this content that just doesn't match him at all. And kind of touching on the journalist side of things and the documentary side of things, with a documentary you kind of have an overarching question or message that you're kind of supposed to have the story start off on and end off on, and kind of give your audience a good conclusion. However, with Shane Dawson, he often sets out with certain things and he doesn't really conclude them. He has awful conclusions, to be honest with you. Not only does he lose the audience because because he waffles and gets sidetracked and loses the point and puts in all this filler content. If you look at his videos, the views always drop from beginning to end because people get tired, people lose interest, and I'm surprised that Shane Dawson doesn't notice these things, but I feel as though that is partly because he is just awful at taking constructive criticism, which we'll touch on just now. But in terms of the actual documentaries, when you look at the TanaCon one, the question about that one was, why did TanaCon fail? And throughout that series, Shane Dawson was just talking to Tana Mongeau, who was just hysterical and crying and placing all of the blame on her partner Michael Weiss when they were both to blame, and Shane Dawson didn't really intervene. He kind of just sat there and babied Tana, and when people called him out on this, instead of taking the constructive criticism, he basically just said something on the lines of, oh, what did you want me to do, drop kick her or something? I don't really know, which obviously, no, they don't want you to do that. They just want you to ask the questions that everybody has and deliver what the point of your series is about. Otherwise, why is it? Nobody clicked on this to watch Tana Mongeau cry for 3 hours. That's not what people want. People want to know what happened and why it happened and what's going to happen, and none of these questions were answered. And that's just a common thread with this series. When you look into the Jake Paul series, he starts off the series focusing on whether or not Jake Paul is a sociopath, which in of it itself is just such a problematic thing that I have so many issues with. You know, taking Jake Paul, who has terrible behavior, and feeling the need to justify that with a mental disorder just is so problematic in so many different ways. It just looks so bad on people who have mental struggles, and also it just sends a really wrong message that if somebody's doing horrible things, they obviously must have something mentally wrong with them. Like, no, sometimes there are just people out there who are bad people who do bad things, and Jake Paul is one of them. I don't think you need to justify it by making him a sociopath, and that is just so dangerous to the people who do suffer from that. And beyond that, the lack of research that was done in that first half of the series is just so astounding to me. He had some therapist. I'm not going to get into the credentials of the therapist, but I think her credentials were put into question a lot, and there wasn't really proof that she was equipped to be saying what she was saying. There was just spreading so much misinformation, and with such young, impressionable fans watching his series, I think that's very dangerous, and I don't think Shane realizes the impact and the influence he has on people, and spreading misinformation like that is really dangerous. Not to mention, one of his episodes were actually sponsored by BetterHelp, which was a company that basically did online therapy, and they turned out to be some sort of scam. But beyond that, first of all, you're profiting off of mental illnesses on a video where you're misinforming people on a mental illness, and you make a commission off of every single person that signs up. That means you're literally preying on your fans who are struggling with mental illnesses and making money off of them directly because you make a commission per sign up. But anyway, that's a whole nother issue. But starting off with this Jake Paul series, that's the question, alright? That's supposed to be the overarching question of this entire series, is inside the mind of Jake Paul, is Jake Paul a sociopath? And Shane Dawson interviews various people in Jake Paul's life and tries to get to the roots of why Jake Paul is the way that he is. Now, something to mention is this is a 8-part series. Each episode is like almost an hour long. Even the final is almost 2 hours long, which is just absolutely ridiculous considering majority of them consists of Shane Dawson and Jake Paul just sitting on a couch. Absolutely nobody needs to watch you sit on a couch and talk to Jake Paul for 2 hours. So the actual series, even though it's 8 parts, Shane Dawson only actually interacts with Jake Paul in the last 4 parts of the series. So you're telling me that a series about this influencer and delving into the mind of him, you don't even meet him until halfway through the series. So that means that everything else up until that point was just based on assumptions. And then beyond that, when you get to the end of the series and you're wanting to dive into the mind of Jake Paul, you barely even try. Jake Paul just manipulates you just as easily as he manipulates his 9-year-old fans. And then the viewer who has watched hours and hours and hours of this terrible, terrible, terrible content is just left there wondering, why did I waste my time? I feel like I know nothing more than I did when I first started watching this series. And also, do you remember when Shane Dawson said he was going to do this series on Jake Paul? Nobody wanted it. Nobody needed a redemption arc for Jake Paul. Why do you need to give a redemption arc to Jake Paul? Jake Paul is still the same now that he was back then, if not worse. Nothing changed, nothing new. Yet Shane Dawson by the end of it is like, oh my god, you're my family, you're such a good person. Why does Shane Dawson feel the need to excuse the behavior of these problematic influences? And it would be fine in and of itself, but the thing is, his audience feeds into it and his audience believes it, and they're manipulated by him into going with his point of view and his narrative. Now, I've been saying a lot of negative things about Shane Dawson's series, but there are some that I really like. Now, I know Jeffree Star is a very problematic influencer with a lot of controversy surrounding him. Him and Shane Dawson both have a lot of controversy surrounding their racist past, so I won't get into that in this video because I've actually spoken about that before in my video on cancel culture, which I'll link down below if you want to check that out. That first series with Jeffree Star, I actually think was done very, very well. I think that series basically achieved achieved its goal, which was to look at the secrets of Jeffree Star's life that we don't get to see. And that's what we got. We saw a lot of stuff in Jeffree's life that we never saw before, a lot of information that we never knew of before. And the series wasn't too drawn out, it wasn't too long, it wasn't too dramatized. It was 5 episodes long, there was some fun moments, there were some touching moments, and I think it wrapped up nicely, and I think that Shane Dawson did really well with that. However, I think after that, Shane Dawson lost what was good about that series and just went off into a really different direction. And this kind of leads me into the next stuff that I want to speak about, is the quality of his videos in terms of the camera work and the editing of his videos. So let's touch on this. This is very interesting to me because I do believe that one year Shane and Andrew won like editor of the year or something, which is just very interesting to me, for lack of a better word. Now look, I'm not really sure of Andrew or Shane's credentials. As far as I know, neither of them went to film school, and I don't think that you necessarily have to be a good filmmaker, but you know, it might help, because there are certain things that I see that I just question, why did you do that? Why did you make that decision? And I feel like a lot of people do as well, and I don't know, they just confuse me. For example, I know we're talking about his documentaries here, but just to touch on this, Shane Dawson is obviously known for his conspiracy videos, which those are just a whole nother problematic genre themselves, because I mean, he spreads misinformation, and a lot of what he says is harmful to people and brands and companies, even though there's no proof that any of it is even true. And beyond that, I just think that conspiracy theories are a very touchy subject that you have to go about in a very careful way, and I don't feel as though Shane Dawson always does that. Prime example of this is in his documentary series earlier this year, I believe. He had a video where he spoke about 3 different topics, and one of them was Chuck E. Cheese, where he had these theories about Chuck E. Cheese reusing their pizza slices, which, is very harmful to the company. But beyond that, he included this, intercut it and interwove it with another story about human trafficking. Now that is obviously a very, very serious topic, and I just think that editing choice to intercut that with a super silly story about Chuck E. Cheese just left a very bad taste in a lot of people's mouths, because I feel as though it didn't do justice to that story and just kind of diminished it. And I just think that it would have been a lot better off if Shane Dawson just separated it. And it's just stuff like that that just indicates to me that he's kind of tone deaf when it comes to certain things like this, because I feel like the average person would see that and be like, I don't really know if you want to do that. Maybe separate it. And there's other things as well that are just not as serious. Like, for example, when it comes to the camera work, Shane Dawson is a millionaire. He's extremely rich. As much as he wants to pretend to be poor and not shower and wear shirts with holes in, the man is undeniably loaded. So he could afford good equipment. He could afford a team of crew members. Now, we all like Andrew. Andrew's fun, whatever. If you don't know who Andrew is, it's basically Shane's partner. He helps him film and edit stuff. But the quality of these documentaries is really shoddy for someone of Shane Dawson's level, in terms of finances and followers and views. The camera work is shaky. It's unprofessional. We hear the clicks of Andrew zooming. We hear him changing SD cards. We hear him turning on the camera. Now, this may be some sort of style, but to me, it just comes across as sloppy and takes away from the story. I don't need to be distracted by the inner workings of your camera. I'd much rather focus on the story. And also, the audio a lot of the times is horrible. Like, could we not get a little mic up here for the people that you're interviewing? Like, surely you could afford that. And surely you could afford 2 cameramen so that you can have one on each person that's being interviewed instead of just this whip and pan. Like, it is honestly just so nauseating to sit through. And I feel as though Andrew and Shane get praised so much for their editing. And editing is hard, good on them. But I feel as though their editing is quite overrated. A lot of their editing is just including a lot of stock footage and over dramatizing things with dramatic audio and songs and sound effects. And I just don't think it's that impressive. And I feel as though the editing is supposed to enhance the content that's already there, not create content. If you took away the editing in a lot of Shane Dawson's docuseries, it would take a lot of the actual content away, because a lot of it just isn't there. For example, with the sociopath stuff with Jake Paul, it wasn't scary. But with the editing and the over dramatizing, he's making it scary. And I just think that that's problematic, because once again, it takes us back to the demonizing of like mental illness and everything. But I just think that it just shows that he's tone deaf and out of touch, because I don't think that editing really paired well with what he was discussing. But moving on from that, something else that Shane has done in kind of his recent videos, especially with the Jeffree Star one, is intercutting between things. And it's very confusing. I don't have an issue with movies or documentaries that cut back in time, but a lot of the time with Shane, he doesn't really give you an indication for it. It just kind of happens, and I feel like it's for dramatic effect, but a lot of the time it doesn't make sense. It's just very confusing, because Shane Dawson says that he spends hours and hours and weeks and months working on his editing and his videos, but then in that same breath, he'll also say that he's been editing all night and editing last minute to make all these changes and stuff. And I just think that a big issue with Shane Dawson's recent videos is that he listens to his audience and then changes the videos. Now, I feel as though if you're going to make a documentary that has good structure, a good storyline, and all of that type of stuff, it needs to be done in advance. You need to plan it out, and then you need to film it, and then you need to edit it and review it and make sure that it makes sense and really look through it multiple times. To make a good documentary, you can't release some of the first videos and then edit the next ones based on what people said about the first ones and then release those, because if you're constantly making changes while releasing the videos, then you lose the structure and the story arc and everything that you set up in the first couple videos. You know, that's assuming that he had them even in the first place, but I think that's a big issue with Shane, is he changes things in the middle of his series and then it ends up being something completely different to the beginning, and there's all these loose ends and there's all these plot holes and all these unanswered questions, and it just is so messy. The biggest way I can describe Shane Dawson's content is messy. He said with the latest series that he had a 9-part series all structured and planned out about going into the beauty industry, delving into it. He had that all done and dusted. Apparently all the episodes were edited, and then he created his trailer. Now a trailer is supposed to show you what is to come, and now because he changed it, the trailer is completely inaccurate. There are so many things in the trailer, like the 911 call, that never even showed up in the series because you changed the series. And you tell your fans that you're going to set out to do one thing and then you end up doing another, and you waste people's time, you lose people's trust, and you lose your integrity. And I think if Shane Dawson keeps this up, he's going to lose subscribers and lose interest and lose viewers, because already now people are finally starting to catch on to his messy ways and the lack of professionalism. I think this was his worst series yet, to be completely honest with you. Like I said, it started off as one thing, ended off with another. A lot of people think it was just one big fat commercial for this palette and it was a cash grab because he had shown no interest in makeup before. Now all of a sudden he has interest and creates this palette, but then he's never even seen wearing makeup unless it's for the marketing of the palette. It all leaves a very weird taste in my mouth, to be completely frank with you. I think the way that he went about this, like chopping and changing the series, and he would constantly say that the video would come out at a certain date and then change it and then upload it and have issues, and then fans would have to wait hours and hours. It was just messy. Okay, I could go on about this for ages, but I'm not going to save you the time and me the breath. Let's just conclude this with Shane Dawson's content is messy and unstructured, and I don't think that he is equipped to be a journalist or a documentarian because he doesn't even do the basic things that those practices require. Long story short, I think Shane Dawson should go back to his old content or try something new, because documentaries, it just ain't it, sis. Alrighty guys, I think that's gonna be it for this video. I have so much that I could still speak about and so much that I'm sure I haven't spoken about, but if I were to do so, this video would be an hour long. So comment down below any of your thoughts, and if I feel as though I need to, I might revisit this subject in the future, but for now I think we're gonna lay this to rest. Besides, I don't think we're gonna see some content from Shane Dawson in a couple months to a year, because I mean, we all know he doesn't need the money after that palette launch though. But anyway guys, I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please give it a thumbs up and comment down below your thoughts. If you have not already, please make sure that you're subscribed and have the post notifications bell on so that you never miss another upload from me. And as always, my social media is just linked down below in the description if you would like to go ahead and follow me, as well as the link to my merch, which is all about staying opinionated and using your voice to stand up for what you believe in. And yeah guys, that's it for me in this video. I really hope you enjoyed it, and as always, I hope that you have a great day or night wherever you are in the world. Bye!